you got a lot of decisions to make now. And it's really time to think about, what are you going to do in 2026? You're going to keep doing more of the same and hope for Trump bucks to come through? Is that what the plan is? Or hope for crop insurance to kick in? Or do you want to look at some alternative crops? The AgEmerge podcast is brought to you by Ag Solutions Network. I'm your host, Monte Bottens. Join me as leaders in soil health, research, and ag tech share their perspectives and enable you to farm outside the box. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the AgEmerge podcast. Today, we're going to do things just a little bit different, because not only do we ask you to farm a little bit differently and think a little bit differently, why not mix it up a little bit here on the podcast? So today, rather than going into the really big ideas and talking to experts in their field about, real deep dives and global implications, I want to share with you a little bit what we're doing on our farm, what other farmers are doing, a little more nuts and bolts and practical today. So I hope you enjoy it. We're gonna dive into some things that I think you can use in your own farming operation. So I think one thing that we really have to define a little bit better, and we're good at farming. We're good at helping make recommendations for farmers. We're good at improving soil health and those kind of things. But clearly defining what we do, it's tough because we just don't fit in a box. And I think one of the things we really need to focus on is for you that are listening and maybe don't work with us, is help you understand just what is the Power to Grow crop production system. So it's not a jug. It's not a thing that you do. Yes, it is part of how you think about things, but I want to kind of simplify it a little bit. So it combines best management practices with proven synergistic products, okay, in alignment with the soil health principles to optimize outcomes. So there's a little bit to unpack there, but that's the core of it. It's what we do, best management practice of what we do, what products we use in order to make those best management practices possible. And the reason we're doing all of these things is to align with the 5 soil health principles. And when we do all those things together, we get the outcomes that we desire. So what are these outcomes? Well, first off, profit. Those are good things. We got to have capital in order to be a capitalist. And profit generates more capital for us to do more things and do better things. The other outcome we're looking for is soil, plant, animal, human, and planet health. All of those things, and they're all in that order. It starts with the soil, continues to the plant, through the animal, and that makes healthy people and ultimately a healthy planet, because we're improving the soil water cycle function. We're improving carbon capture and utilization for the plants. So all of that is connected, and our management practices, along with Power to Grow products that enable us to do those management practices, gives us those healthy outcomes that we're looking for. Finally, and a lot of farmers tell us this, is it's a livelihood aspect. We make farming fun again. We make it purposeful again. We don't feel ashamed about what we're doing. It's like, yeah, we're doing that, but we just have to in order to be competitive, or it's because what everybody else is doing or what I've been recommended. We give you the leadership in order to do the right thing and do that right thing always. So when we do that, you feel better about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it just puts a whole new dimension into farming. So we'll talk about those things a little bit today. And the key point is the products that we've developed can work in a full conventional system where we have, a monocrop that's, maybe continuous corn forever and ever, and tillage and no cover crops and those kind of things. We can meet you right there. And that's great. But then they enable you to get to less tillage, enable you to incorporate cover crops, enable you to use less insecticides, less fungicides, or none, enable you to go to non-GMO crops, enable you to do all these things which will improve your profitability and the outcomes that we're looking for in health and in your overall livelihood, how much you enjoy farming. So that's a fun thing that we get to do about it. One thing I've always wanted to avoid when it comes to things related to the Power to Grow crop production system is 2 things, essentially overlap and antagonisms. So overlap. Talk a little bit about that. Every product that you've seen come onto your farm, buy this, it gets you 2 bushels, 5 bushels, whatever. The product claim is we should be raising 10,000 bushel crops or 10,000 ton crops or 10,000 pound crops, whatever crop you're working with, because of the claims that are made. And we know that's not possible. So we try to avoid those overlaps. Why would we want to wastefully spend money? Maybe why would we want to encourage luxuriant consumption? In many cases, luxuriant consumption of a plant increases the prevalence of disease. We're always very adamant at looking at those overlaps. And when you work with multiple companies or multiple products, even within the same company, there'll be overlaps. And we're trying to avoid that because there is no good outcome from that, either in your wallet or on the crop health, to having excess. Okay. So there's an optimum to everything, and excess is not good. The second thing we try to do is avoid antagonisms. I mean, I've seen cases where products are put in the same tank and they neutralize each other, or they may cause an antagonism that's toxic to a plant, or they may actually hold back on yield. A lot of PGRs are coming out now, and I'm getting kind of a chuckle out of this tight tassel syndrome. Do you really think that so many acres of corn was bred and was new this year to have tight tassel syndrome? Or do you think it could be the fact that a certain hybrid or a certain company that has the hybrids that has this tight tassel syndrome happened to roll out a new seed treatment with plant growth regulators in it that would affect how the plant grows and develops, and that might have a little more to do with it? So it's really good to know antagonisms. And when it comes to plant growth regulation and telling the plant how to grow and when to grow, it is extraordinarily important to make sure we don't create antagonisms. And we've been fortunate to develop our products in California, where we do a lot of development on sweet corn in the past. It was an excellent crop, but it requires very safe fertilizers in order for it to work. And we could get 7 iterations a year because it's planted, every week to meet the market. And on tomatoes, again, safety is always a concern, but we can see the plant growth response instantly. And also work with cotton. It's a black box. It tells you exactly what was happening in that plant 10 days, 30 days ago. And that's really, really interesting to see. So we try to avoid the antagonisms. And when we take all of those products together and we supply a full suite, then we don't have to worry about folks going outside and adding something to what we have and causing an antagonism possibly, or wasting money. So those are things that we try to do with the Power to Grow system. So up front, I wanted to just define that a little bit better because people wonder, what do you do? And it's hard to put in a box, but we offer everything from the recommendations of commodity NPKs that you should be applying, that you would get from a commodity big box store fertilizer company, one of the big four. But we offer all of the areas that are less understood. So starters, foliars, irrigation water treatment, also seed treatments, and various other biological stimulants that factor into season-long application in the soil and salinity management. So with that in mind, I wanted to move on to a little bit of the best management practices that we're doing. That's one part of the equation of the Power to Grow system. Some fun things, and I put them down here so I don't forget, and I hope they're in somewhat of an order, is I've gone to a roller crimper on our farm, and I think this is one of those tools to have in your shed that is extraordinarily useful, and you'll find it's one of those things, once you buy it, you'll find that you use it for a lot of different things. Originally, we discovered that when we grow cover crops and we grow them to a large size, that they interfere with soybean yields. So the shading of the cover crop interferes with the yield of the soybeans. Plus, we couldn't go very high rates because we'd have a lot of biomass we'd have to send through the combine in the fall. And you run the risk, if you don't terminate them early enough, to get contamination of rye, wheat, triticale, whatever you have for cereal grain within your soybeans. So we went to a flat roller, that's commonly used for rock management in southern Illinois or in Minnesota is where they're really popular. And it worked great to get the cover crop to go flat to the ground. And what we discovered out of all that is that by getting that cover crop to the ground, we're able to provide extra coolness on the ground and weed suppression. We're also able to have better harvest efficiency. But most importantly, on the replicated trials where we did that with cover crops, we gained 7 bushel to the acre of soybeans. So that was definitely worth it. But the only problem with a flat roller is it would not terminate a green cover crop. So over time, we've learned on soybeans, the ticket is to plant green. That cover crop can get as big as you want, plant green into it, works great. A few caveats there we'll get into, but we had to chemically terminate it no matter what. And when you're growing non-GMO soybeans, that chemical termination has to occur before they come up. So you have to really watch your rain timing, make sure you get that chemical termination out there prior to the soybeans coming up. Otherwise, that makes for some interesting fields. So by getting a roller crimper, that enables us then to do mechanical termination instead of chemical. And that mechanical termination then gives us an opportunity, as we're looking forward to move to more organic practices or be organic certified. Now we've got that roller crimper in our arsenal to work with. But in the meantime, this opens up some additional opportunities to where rather than run a burn down pass after planting, what if we stage that to later in the season? And this year we did a strip trial, and we're going to expand it to whole field trials next year, where we roller crimped at V3 on the soybeans. So we had no stand loss. It looks really good right now. I'm pretty excited about this. Plus, we were able to put our pre-emergent down a little bit later. So we're using the cover crop to suppress the weeds until a later period of time. Then we come back and we pick up any little weeds that have germinated. And especially in an enlist program, this would be super easy to do. But we put the pre-emergent down a little bit later so it lasts longer into the season. And then we terminate that whole cover crop with the roller crimper. So that's an interesting opportunity. So actually how we did it in our non-GMO context is we still sprayed the pre-emergent on Zidua Pro, but with no glyphosate in the tank mix. So we let the triticale, in this case, grow. And then once we hit V3, we came through and roller crimped it down. And we noticed far less weeds were germinating because we had more suppression associated with the cover crop that was there. So roller crimper is definitely a great thing to have in the arsenal. Going forward, we're going to plant the cover crops thicker. So that way, when we roller crimp, they're taller, but they're weaker. So when you roller crimp, they knock down easier. That's typically in organic production something they do. And if you look at, I know in particular UW-Madison's done quite a bit of work on those seeding rates, and they'll typically recommend 2 to 3 bushels per acre of a cereal grain that you're going to do in that roller crimping context. So that's what we plan to do for this fall. And that's another reason why we wanted to have that conversation today, is be thinking it through. If you're going to be using cover crops and next year's cropping plan, you have to be making those decisions today so that you're ready to go and people can just pull the trigger once the combine starts rolling. So I'm pretty excited about the roller crimper offering us lots of opportunities there. The other thing we're using the roller crimper for now is we had a triticale for grain that we're growing for cover crop seed, which is available. And that triticale, then we seed our cow chow, summer grazing mix, right between the rows. So our Avatar plants on 10-inch rows, and the row unit is narrow enough, and with RTK, we can split that standing straw. So then once that's split, we come through with the roller crimper and knock it down. Now I'm going to talk about the Avatar and the stripper and those kind of things a little bit here in a minute. But on the roller crimper, then I get that straw down to the soil surface. I'm keeping the soil cool. I'm keeping it protected from rain and wind erosion, and I'm giving an opportunity for that to start to return the nutrients to the soil on a slow basis and not creating confetti, because we've had bad experiences in no-till with wheat stubble going through the combine, creating confetti that just leaves the soil complete muck and mud the next spring. So by having a roller crimper, we find that let's say in soybeans, the platform just goes right over top of it. We'll have the similar experience where we just don't have interference when you have whole stems that are crimped down versus confetti that can be blown around. So the roller crimper, definitely something for you to consider to put in your arsenal with cover crops and those kind of things. I've been very, very pleased with it. And we do offer that through Ag Solutions Network. If you don't have a source for a roller crimper, we are a dealer for Progressive Ag Solutions, and we can certainly get a crimper for you. I chose their 40-foot model because it has 5 sections, and in variable ground, you can float and follow the ground contours better. They make all sizes from essentially 5 foot to 60 foot. So we can do anything. We've looked at 5-footers for grape orchards, 8-footers, 10-footers, 18-footers for orchards or almond orchards, or for row crop work, 60 foot, 40 foot, and 60 foot is pretty common. The other thing, some other new BMPs we've been working with is I'm very excited about our Horsch Avatar that we got. So it's a 40-foot seeder. It's all in one rank. They're single disc, no-till disc opener drill with an amazing amount of weight transfer. So really gets into the ground, no questions asked, even over a deer with all of the doodads and gizmos in my experience. The Avatar then has 2 tanks on it that you can deliver any dry product that you want. So this spring we seeded our soybeans with that to get 10-inch row soybeans. And I was very impressed with the stand. Drills, sometimes you wonder, is it a modified spill? The old joke. It did a great job at emerging. The other thing that's really unique about the Avatar is you're able to adjust the rear closing wheel to where you don't throw all the dirt back on it. So if you're in the West and you're chasing water and you got moisture at 3 inches, you can set that opener disc to go to 3 inches to place the seed down there. And then you can set the little closing wheel to just put maybe an inch of soil on top of it, which is extraordinarily handy. So the crop doesn't have to come out through a whole bunch of soil. In the case of soybeans, let's say you were really dry, you want to plant it to moisture, but only have to come up an inch. You can do that, which is really, really unique. And the 10-inch gives you a little more room to play with. And some of the things that we do is on the towers, you can put in little plugs to where we can plug off every 3rd row. So row 1 will plant a seed, row 2 is plugged, 3 and 4 plants a seed, 5 is plugged, and so on and so forth across all 48 rows. The unique part about that is it allows us to do something we discovered a long time ago, the skip strip cover crop, where on a 7.5, we were leaving 15-inch corridor to plant our corn into the next year. So corn, pretty finicky, likes to be treated really nicely when it's a baby. And we found that cover crops, because the root mass that they create, and that root mass tends to hold the soil together, when we go to plant corn into cover crops, and we can double disc opener slice it through those roots, no problem. And we can place the corn at depth and have a Keaton seed firmer and press it to the bottom of the trench. All of that works fine in cover crops for corn. The problem is the closing system. The closing system, I've used multiple closing systems, from Martin spike wheels, Schlegel's, the twisted ones from Yetter, the Copperhead Ag ones. We've used all those, and I have the Precision Planting Furrow Force, which to me is the penultimate closing system. But still, root ball interference with closing the soil around the seed is a problem. So I like to leave that skip strip. And I know people say, "Oh, that's not a problem," and those kind of things. I've had the problem. If you're in the over 225 bushel yield environment, it seems to be a problem. So we do that, and we have steering on the seeders, RTK steering on the seeder, RTK steering on the tractor. And then we lay those out in the fall. So here again, this is another one of those decisions you need to make now, so you're set up for planting in spring of 26. But leaving that 20-inch corridor then allows us to go ahead and plant the corn right in there undisturbed. And the neat part is we can get great stands, still have the cover crops, and not have that interference. So that's one thing that's great about the Avatar. Another thing that's really great is I intend to, well, first off, let me tell you a little story. We had some cover crops seeded by a person. We put on 100 pounds of 0060, and we put on 60 pounds of cereal rye. The next spring when we go out there, we had a really nice stand of cereal rye for about 20 feet behind that spreader. And then the other 40 feet, because they were spreading on a 60-foot pattern, which is a little narrower than what they normally spread, because they were concerned about how the cereal rye would fling out there. There was the other 40 feet, so you had 20 foot of green, 40 foot of next to nothing, 20 foot of green, 40 foot of next to nothing. And I just can't help but think, was it just the cereal rye that only went 20 feet? Running spinners, it's great when they're perfectly calibrated and no wind and you're driving at the same speed all the time. But I've never seen perfect. So I get really concerned about that. So the other thing I get concerned about too is when we put these expensive plow down fertilizers or maintenance fertilizers out in our fields, that it's on the surface and we get, rains that can be heavy, or we get the ground that freezes before water can work in or take in the nutrients. And on potassium, we can move it into the ground, but phosphorus, we don't. So it's on the surface, especially in a no-till situation. We are asking to send all of those nutrients that we just paid big dollars for, whatever, $100 an acre, and we're sending that down to the Gulf of Mexico. Why are we doing this? Well, we've just always done a spreader. Well, the neat part about the Avatar is this is going to allow us to inject those dry fertilizers right into the soil on 10-inch bands. And again, we can do the same thing where we plug certain rows and we can just index those. So let's say if you just wanted to put your your mono map, if you wanted to put it just on your corn rows, you could plug them to just deliver it there. So my intention for this fall is we're going to go ahead and put out the cover crop seed in the corn. So row 1 will have triticale, and we're going to put that out at about 60 pounds the acre. And then also in that row with the other tank, we're going to put out potassium sulfate. And you can put out a certain amount of potassium sulfate, about 50 pounds, before you have any sort of stand loss on your seed. And potassium sulfate costs more, but it's more effective for the plant. So the cost and effectiveness kind of offset each other, and we don't cause stand losses. So that's what we're going to do, is have that potassium sulfate out there. And then on the corn rows themselves, I'm going to set that corn row deeper at about 3 inches. So I'm putting it below the seed, 3 to 3.5 inches. Then we developed a tube to where we can use Precision Plantings ViaPly EMHD and put on 1034O with our plus additive below the seed. So we're supplying season-long phosphorus indexed right to the row. So it's very similar to a strip till setup, but we're doing it with a no-till disc opener. So on every 30 inches, we'll be banding 5 to 10 gallons of 1034O with our plus additive that you get from Ag Solutions Network to keep it available for the plant for a long period of time. And then that will be our ability to supply phosphorus throughout the season. In areas, let's say I have more requirements, or certain areas I need to exceed the 50 pounds, or if I'd want to go out with more P&K, I'm inclined to just make a second pass for fertilizer, because I know that row 1 to 48, and I have a monitor that shows me row 1 to 48 what the magnitude of distribution is. I know that I'm evenly spreading that, not hoping that the co-op drives in a different spot kind of every year, and eventually over 10 years it all kind of works out, and hopefully the rain don't take it away, and maybe by some miracle it works itself in, or I got to go out and run the vertical till to make it work in. So all those kind of things we're trying to avoid, is all all the maybes and the what ifs. Why do we do that? I don't even think we realize that we do that. It just, stuff like that bugs me. It just bugs me to send $50 an acre down a stream to make it someone else's pollution. That bugs me. Not putting it where the plant can use it most efficiently. That bugs me. So, and allowing someone else to do it and not knowing what happens. Hey, I'm a control freak. That bugs me. Okay. It should bug you too. At least one of those things should bug you. If not, here, check your pulse. Make sure everything's still beating, right? Oh man. So anyway, I think when you're looking at going to cover crops, really consider these best management practices that we're able to accomplish with our new horse avatar. And that is the crop corridors, leaving a space for corn. Beans don't need to do that. And one nice thing about the avatar is it lets you split. I can split beans 5 inches off the standing cover crop rows. So that's awesome. The other thing is look at fertilizer that you can be planting with that seeding fast. So it's out there, it's indexed to the row where you need it, and deep band phosphorus like we're going to. But we can show you how to do all those things. We have within the network of people who have the expertise, the knowledge, the know-how, and have done it before. We can help you get set up for those kind of things. And I've been abundantly pleased with my horse dealer. They're one of the largest in the country, if not the largest. They're based out of Indiana, but they service basically from the Missouri River to the Atlantic Ocean. And they actually have airplanes. And when you need something, the tech flies an airplane and he'll land in your field to help you out. So I haven't been disappointed at all by their service. So that's pretty exciting. Another thing, I think that's enough commercial for Horse Avatar. I'm going to have to talk to Lucas Horse and see if he'll endorse or sponsor this podcast, I guess. Anyway, moving on, the next thing we did is we got a shell-borne stripper. I've been wanting to pull the trigger on this for a long time. They're expensive. Don't know a whole lot about them. I did some research and went on the road trip and got one out in Colby, Kansas. Man, what a machine. That is incredible. If you have small grains at all, it is a fantastic machine. So what we did is we had a triticale we'd planted for seed, outstanding yield. It just has been amazing to see the epigenetic effect of saving our own seed and prospering that. But the shell-borne stripper just goes through and ticks the head off of the small grain. So whether it's wheat, triticale, and the engineer said, oh, you can't use it for triticale. And I'm like, I called Phil Needham. He says, don't worry about it. It'll work. So I rolled the dice and it does work. But any small grain, it just plucks just the head off. So you don't have hardly any material going through the combine. So, 125 bushel, 5 mile an hour, no problem. It was amazing. We put a head sight system on there because California Ag Solutions is a head sight dealer now under the PTX brand. And it just works phenomenal. And picks up down. I had some down areas, short, thin areas, just works great. And the key part is that when you only send the heads through the combine, all it's spreading out the back is the heads. So in the past, when I'd use a platform and cut high, you're sending straw out the back and it don't quite get all the way out to the full 40 feet, right? And in some places, it's a little thicker than other places. And some places you've got more chaff and other places you got more straw. So the worst thing you can do in a field is create variability. Because once you create that variability, you have to manage that variability. And we don't have the ability to manage it. So why are we creating it in the first place? So that's why I went to the shell-borne head, is I'm able to get just the heads and it spreads out, full width. It is not a problem at all. So out there in the field, we have rows standing almost perfectly straight, and just all you see on the ground is a few heads from that came out the back of the combine threshed. And it is magical. So after that, we sprayed for any sort of summer weeds that have come up to burn that down, waited 3 days for the 2,4-D, and then we came in with our cow chow mix, which is BMR pearl millet, Brachytic dwarf pearl millet, and then we've got kale, because we always tell our customers our cows eat kale, so you don't have to. We have turnips in there, which are a good post-frost food source for cows. They love it. Crimson clover to grow some nitrogen, but also protein for that crop, because this is going to be grazed in the summer and post frost. And that's the nice part about millet. There is no prussic acid worries there like there is on any of the sorghum or sorghum crosses. So we can just keep on a grazing, and a real high digestibility, very leafy plant. And then the other thing we got out there is cowpeas, mainly for, again, nitrogen and a summer type growth. And hoping some of that clover will persist and provide nitrogen next spring for the corn. We'll no-till plant into it and then terminate it post-planting. So that's what we've got going in there. And then the Avatar is able to actually split those two standing 10-inch straw rows and put the cow chow right in between. Then we come back, like I said earlier, with a roller crimper, roll it down, done. So we strip, we spray, we seed, we roll. Strip, spray, seed, roll. And that process is working really, really well. And on seed, we are using our ignition at 3 gallons, fast track at 1 gallon, rev up at 32 ounces, because I happen to know rev up does some amazing things for plant digestibility, which means gains in beef cattle. So don't tell anybody else, but the guy that formulated it knows these things. So I go a little higher rate on that. And then also our product Accelerate at 2 quarts in there. And then watered that all up to 12 gallons for distribution. And we put that right on seed as we're seeding. And then once it's up, we're going to go back and we'll put on about 60 units of UAN with thiazole, our enhanced micronutrient package, our enhanced technical grade humic acid package on there to keep it stable and supply nitrogen for that crop that's competing with the degradation of the straw coming off the triticale crop. Then the other thing is we intend to no-till right into that without dealing with all the confetti, because first off, we didn't create it with the stripper. Secondly, the cows are going to be out there invariably breaking it up, incorporating it throughout the season. And next year, the corn crop go right into that. So pretty excited about that process. Again, all those management practices coming together, allowing us crop diversity, right? That's something definitely different than corn and beans. So there's a soil health principle. Check. We're keeping the ground covered. Check. We are no-tilling, right? We're not disturbing the soil. Check. We're integrating livestock, check. And we're always having a living root, because those mixes in there are going to be growing anytime above freezing. So we've checked all 5 principles by doing things that way. And it's a lot of fun and spreads out your workload a little bit. So we got 225 acres less that we'll need to do in the spring or fall with that kind of a program. So most excited about that because, that's what I'm doing right now. We're staggering the planting, and tomorrow I plant another 80 acres. So we're planting 80 acres a week in order to time that with the cattle herd. Some other things, best management practices that we're doing. We continue to do this, and I cannot preach this loud enough, is fast track and draft as a foliar this time of year is just excellent at preventing leaf tissue diseases and insects. So rather than going out with an expensive fungicide and an insecticide that's cheap, it's only $3, go ahead and do it and nuke the whole population, why don't we just enable the plant to defend itself? And that's what fast track and draft does. And we're just very excited about that. The only thing we've done a little bit different this year is tar spot came early, and it's below the ear leaf, right? Because the ear is a carbohydrate sink. And when you have a carbohydrate sink that pulls almost all the carbs into forming the ear, there's nothing left in the lower leaves to help defend itself. So when we put the foliar out there, we're going to knock down some of that tar spot that's down there, because acetic acid is an oxygen scavenger, vinegar. Okay. You clean stuff with vinegar. Well, we're cleaning up the tar spot with the vinegar. And the potassium in there is going to give you a flush of sugar in the top. Draft is going to really encourage the plant to change essentially how the mitochondria function within the cells. So it changes the rate of respiration. It changes the plant signaling to know when there's diseases. So it improves essentially autoimmune communication or immune system communication within there, and some of the physiological aspects of the plant to make it less susceptible to hot spells, dry spells, hail, insects, those kind of things. It just improves the overall plant responses and signaling, and gives us a little flush of new root growth for nutrient acquisition and grain fill. So pretty excited about that. That's just been a phenomenal combination. And I really encourage everyone, use that somewhere where you can control it and monitor it and see, because we've seen for 3 years in a row, no difference in yield to foliar versus fungicide. And I've actually seen sometimes where the fungicide is less than the foliar. So I would strongly encourage you there. And in that way, we don't have to, listen to why won't my residue break down and I got to run a vertical till. Well, when you go out and nuke all the fungal species on the leaf tissue and on the soil surface, what do you think does the heavy lifting on residue decomposition? Fungal species. So let's not kill our friends when we're trying to kill the one bad guy. We're killing all of our buddies with them. So it's kind of like, if all your buddies were being held captive and you had 40 buddies and they were being held captive in a room and there was one terrorist holding them at gunpoint, would you send a bomb in to kill the one terrorist? No, you wouldn't. We have to be very precise on how we're doing things. And the best way I know how to do it with this abundant, beautiful biodynamic system that God has created with a plethora of diversity and abundance of microbes on the soil, on the soil surface, on the leaf surface, within the leaf, within the tissues of the plant, is prosper the plant, don't kill everything. So prosper life, real key and a best management practice. So again, if you haven't tried Fast Track and Draft as a foliar, you have to. I know we're running out of time right here. You might catch some beans late where you could do it at the R3 stage. VT to R1 on corn is awesome. If your sprayer is getting covered in pollen, you're probably doing it right. You don't have to be afraid of the crop oil burning it up. You don't get burned. And then definitely use burnout water with your carrier. Keep that low. Keep the enzymes in the burnout to get it into the plant. Works great. Let's take a quick break and hear from our national sales manager at ASN, Zach Neppel.
The AgEmerge podcast is brought to you by Ag Solutions Network. At ASN, we support farmers with top quality crop nutrition products and soil health practices. Our Power to Grow system delivers tailored nutrition to boost plant health and improve soil function, ensuring higher yields and sustainable growth. From seed to harvest, trust ASN to feed your crops and your bottom line. Let's farm better together. Visit agsolutionsnetwork.com to learn more.
Other best management practices. We went to a pulse width modulating spray system this year. That is a game changer. So, benefits, prior to having a mix mate, when we were mixing field side, we could do about 300 acres a day. So there was a lot of time spent mixing. Went to a mix mate, we went up to about 550 acres a day on average. Okay. When we went to pulse width modulation, we can do 800 acres a day because we don't have to trace out all of our waterways. You just drive right across them. So after harvest, go out, you measure all your waterways and, boundary them off forever and ever, amen, so you don't accidentally spray them across, which I know that doesn't happen to anybody else, right? Wink, wink. So then you can just go through your field. I mean, we have fields where we'll spray a whole tank out just tracing the boundaries of all the waterways and the edges of the field and everything. And then if you're not going full speed into the corners or you're going too fast on the curves, you leave on the outside where your wings going 20 mile an hour, you're putting on a half rate. All the PWMs take care of that. The other thing we're going to do, and I'm really excited about, is we're using precision planting Symphony Vision next year. And the vision will allow us to see weeds against crop and spray only the weeds. So I'm anticipating cutting our post herbicides down by about 50%, which everybody's like, okay, yeah, you save half the money on the chemical, right? The big deal, I think, is any herbicide requires the plant to metabolize it. And when it's metabolizing that, you are affecting yield or affecting disease resistance. Always. There's just everything we do has a consequence to it. So by putting out only what we need and targeting only the weeds, I think that's going to be a significant yield increase, let alone cost savings. So, for our 120-foot sprayer, it's a significant investment, but with gaining 1 bushel the acre corn, gaining 1 bushel the acre of beans, because non-GMO bean herbicides are pretty hard on a bean plant, and cutting our applied in by 30%, it will pay for itself in 1 year. So I'm pretty excited about that. And plus, the other feedback we get is we get feedback on weed density and severity across the whole field. So now I've created a scouting map that I can send to our scout, or I myself can go out and look and see how we did on that weed control. Because one of the problems with water hemp is you got daddy water hemp that gets growing. He's about 6 inches tall, and he shades out all the other little baby water hemps that are coming up later, and we don't kill them, right? Or we just wound them. And the worst thing you can do is wound a water hemp. You just make it mad, and then they're hard to kill the next time around. So if we know where that density is and we can vary our rate, if we get really dense, we can go up an active ingredient rate. If we don't have density at all, it just sprays a normal rate. Or if there's no weeds, we don't spray at all. So very excited about that. We can make maps and manage accordingly. But a little birdie who happens to know a lot of the engineers of precision planting, that birdie would probably be me, talking to him a little bit. This baseline is going to allow us to have multiple products, multiple booms, and we're going to be able to vision see what's going on with that plant and be able to specifically tailor weed applications and foliar applications to what that plant needs when it needs it. So stay tuned. There's a lot more coming in that technology, and we need to have someone from Precision Planting talking about the vision system on the podcast, because we're pretty excited about what that is. I also like it too, because instead of I buy the equipment, I own it, done, no subscriptions. I don't have to put slide my credit card on the side of the Green Star monitor, and every time I save $1, I have to give 50 cents to Mama Deer, or however their program works. No subscriptions for this. It's just, buy the sensors and you get to use them. So pretty excited about that approach. I think that farming we should get the benefit of the management protocols that we do, not having to share that with the manufacturer of those things. All right. So those are some of the best management practices, a few that come to mind that we worked with this year that I'm pretty excited about. And I hope you can take some of those and put it to work on your farm. And please, you know what? Call me, email me, whatever. If I can help you, or you want to see what's going on, come to the farm. Happy to talk about that. So next thing is, products. The second leg is practices one's products of the Power to Grow system. There's some new products that we're exploring and looking into. And this cover crop seed thing, I think there's some good leadership out there, and there's some need for more leadership. And in our particular neck of the woods, there's not a lot of options for cover crop seed and mixes. So we're exploring moving into there, and we continue to grow triticale for seed and looking at other seeds for next year in our cropping plan to help meet the principle of diversity. But I would encourage you to strongly consider triticale. We are growing Gainer 154 from TriCal. We pay the premium on it. When we sell it to others, it's 3.5 or 4 cents a bushel, or 3.5, 4 cents a pound premium on that goes to them for their research and development. But the nice part is that we found, compared to rye, and this is something that blew my mind, because we've all been told it 100 times, that rye outperforms triticale when planted late. Well, there's something about this variety that is not true. I had 3 to 4 times the biomass on my triticale that was planted on the 1st of November versus the rye that was planted on the 1st of November. So or November 1 to November 10 range. I was really, really impressed by that. I was shocked. In fact, I went to the field. I'm like, all the time I'd been driving by, I'm like, oh yeah, look, the triticale didn't grow very good. And man, the rye on the ends looks great. And I got out the maps. Dad printed the maps. I went and walked the field. I'm like, wait a minute, I had this backwards the entire time. So it just, see what happens when you assume, ASS, you, and me. So never assume. And I don't always believe the mantra that rye is the only way to go. If you can get a better response, accomplish more of what you want, I think it's easier to terminate. I think it's easier to manage residue-wise. It's higher digestibility, so it releases back It's better in a cow. So if it's better in a cow, it's better in the soil. It releases back to the soil quicker. And I had all the same weed suppression effects. I was really pleased with it. And it, when you roll it, it crimps over easier and it's done. It don't like to spring back up like rye does. So pretty excited about that. I'd strongly encourage you guys to consider that. And we will be offering that if you're within 250 miles of the Quad Cities. It would probably make economic sense to visit with us about shipping you some. We'll have it cleaned and shipped. We're going to have it available on the website to order, or reach out to us beforehand to get that done. But I think that's an incredibly valuable thing that we're coming across there. Other new products, things that we're looking at, is we've gone to non-GMO beans and realized that there's just a real lack of leadership in non-GMO beans. One is weed control. How do you do it? Well, cover crops and non-GMO beans are awesome, right? Running a drill is better than running a planter. You know, the narrower you can get the rows, the quicker you can canopy, the better. And we decided that there's just an opportunity for leadership in the genetic selection. So about 5 years ago, we started doing selections based off of an agronomist friend of mine that said, you know, I think heavier beans produce better yield. But guess how many grade sizes you can get of soybeans from your seed supplier? One. You get soybeans. Now, when it comes to corn, good grief, how many different sizes can you get? I mean, at one time there was 30 some sizes you could get. They've narrowed it down, I think, and it depends on your company, 6 to 12, right? So we thought, let's test this theory. If my friend's right, let's see what we got. So we air separated and used that to create density. We took the 20% heaviest beans, planted them. We took the 100%, planted it, and we took the 80% and planted it. So when you looked at the comparison, and this is in 4 reps and 2 different varieties, we had anywhere from a 1.8 bushel to a 3.8 bushel gain when we did the 20% versus the 100%. Now, when we did the 20% versus the 80, you know, the heaviest versus the 80% lightest, then we were like 7 bushel spread. So we found that really interesting. So we have the ability to, with a seed contract, to save our beans, and we save our beans, we air separate, plant them back. And we were realizing we're stepping up in yield every year because beans are not a hybrid. So they're not photocopies of each other. They're essentially a similar group of genetics with a whole bunch of little variants in them. So what we're trying to do is identify the ones that have that yield potential and can do some really great things for us and adapt it to our environment. And then I started about 3 or 4 years ago really looking into epigenetics and what that is. And, you know, the offspring are better adapted, and we can turn on certain markers within this generation to have certain expression that we want. And I realized, okay, Power to Grow systems helping us with the plant nutrition products to turn on certain things. And when I grow my beans, I'm growing them in no-till with heavy residues. I'm growing them with green. I'm planting them into green cover crops. And, you know, we're doing it with a drill. So if you look at how most foundation seed is planted, it's planted, you know, with planters, full tillage, full seed protection. Mine are naked. Okay, all they got on them is Rev Up. That's it. No Nemagard, no nematode protection, no, what's the other one that helps you with the SDS protection? All those things are not there. It's just Rev Up for root expression and growth of the plant. So by growing it that way, then we are selecting for the beans that produce the heaviest beans under that regime. So after we grow them out 1 year after receiving the genetics, then we offer them for sale to you, and you can take advantage of them in a soil health first context. So, you know, are you likely going to be full tillage? No. Are you going to likely use a cover crop? Hopefully. Are you going to hopefully plant naked beans? Yes. And all these kind of things. And then you plant them, buy them from us, you plant them. And then we go ahead and take our process on your farm So you save your beans. Let's say you save a truckload, send it to us. We air separate it, we clean it, bag it to you, and you get it back. The extra overrun we send to sell to a barge to hopefully get a non-GMO premium. Pass that sale to you, and then the cleaning portion of it, we bill you for cleaning and bagging and all that jazz. But you've got your beans that are adapted to your farm, ready to go. So that's pretty exciting, and we're looking forward to how that can really help out farmers. So last year we had a 3.2 that we introduced. We're pretty excited about that one. This year in the ground right now, we have a 1.8, which is a great double crop potential. Or our folks up in Minnesota and North Dakota, hey, or South Dakota, it's an opportunity for you. We have a 2.9 that is a very high yielding 2.9 that we essentially rescued that had water damage, and we had to do a lot of things to save that, but it's in the field right now. And we also have a 2.8 that is ready to go. So we're pretty excited about that. We'll have more options for that this year. It was kind of a soft rollout last year, and we're gonna work more on that this coming year. So some other things. The final topic I wanted to go over with you today is fall decisions. You got a lot of decisions to make now, and it's really time to think about what are you going to do in 2026. You're going to keep doing more of the same and hope for Trump bucks to come through? Is that what the plan is? Or hope for crop insurance to kick in? Or do you want to look at some alternative crops? We're doing the seed production. We're doing the cover crop seed production. We've got some sweet corn we're doing just to test that out and see some things. Think about what else you can be doing within your market. Don't just keep doing the same thing and expect different results, okay? And now's the time to maximize those discounts. Typically, September is when the best discounts are on anything, and the money's worth it to borrow in order to pay for it. If you know you're going to do it, go ahead and do it. Make your payments. If you don't think you're going to be in business, then don't worry about it, I guess. But if you're going to be in business, take advantage of those things. Every one of those leverage points you can make really, really helps. Cover crop planning, have to do it right now. Start immediately. Don't be all Jerry Maguire, okay, when it comes to cover crops. Show me the money. Don't be planting cover crops because you're hoping to get a payment from Bayer or a payment from whoever. Now, I'm not opposed to you finding those things. The Precision Group here in Illinois, Cover Crop Initiative in Indiana, PFI in Iowa, all of them have different resources. Most of them are done by the Soil and Water Outcomes Fund. So you can go onto that website, Soil and Water Outcomes, and look at that and see. But you definitely need to have cover crops in there. And you're like, well, why? I don't need the tax write-off this year. Well, there's this little weed out there, and I don't know if you noticed, but this year was a really good year for it, called water hemp. And having cover crops in there at high densities is one of the best things you can do for water hemp, and especially in soybeans. Plant green. Suppress that water hemp, make it weak, make it easier to kill. It's just amazing. And then plan to use those cover crop corridors we talked about. How are you going to set up your equipment to do that? Maybe you have a 15-inch planter. Great opportunity. Get the seed right discs. They're made in Indiana. Put those in there, plant your cover crops on 15, and you can pretty easy split that with a 30-inch row corn planter. Just keep that corn row out of the cover crop row to get the maximum results. Look into alternative crops. Start researching. Look at maybe some organic. Look at small grains that you can grow for cover crop seed or for selling to the mill, those kind of things. Grazing opportunities. Beef cattle prices aren't too bad, and they're looking for feed. Would they want to graze their stockers after a small grain on your place like I'm doing? Hay. We need hay to feed these animals. Are there opportunities there? Is there other produce, flowers, things like that you can do? Sunflowers, or I guess confection flowers, but I was thinking sunflowers for a protein source, peas, all those things. If you just scoffed at me for mentioning something horrible other than corn and soybeans, well, that's an indication that you really need to think, adjust your thinking if you want to just continue losing money doing the same thing or breaking even. Take a hard look at these kind of things and think about it. Fall fertilizer. Now's the time to make decisions on fall fertilizer. Everybody's talking about the high cost of phosphorus. That's true. It's high. And who knows why. They'll give you a million reasons. Nobody really knows. reality is the market's controlled by few players and can charge kind of whatever the heck they want. So phosphorus, if you're going to use it the most efficiently possible. And if there's one nutrient out there that needs to be banded, it's phosphorus. So put it in a band strip till, put it in a band like I was talking about with my cedar, get it out there, put it on with furrow force. I love that. I put our ignition on seed. You can also put ignition in the side rows, or you can put ignition on seed and put maybe 1034O in the side rows to get more total pounds out there in the total price. So, put 5 gallons of ignition on seed, then look at putting 5 gallons to 10 gallons in the wings of the furrow force. That's a great way to do it. And then fall ammonia. The problem with fall ammonia is once you pull that trigger, your flexibility is gone. So if you want to change your cropping plan, you're going to have some really great nitrogen looking soybeans or something else that doesn't need nitrogen. Plus, I don't know how many people have got just $40 that they can put out per acre now and hope that it makes it to next July. I just think you got to get this mentality out of there. We can grow amazing crops on 120 to 135 units of nitrogen. Our best management practice is 60 units on with the planter and come back with the balance that you need, 75 units with, there's another new practice we did this year is we decoupled, we pull a side dress bar behind our tractor now so the sprayer can be spraying and I can be side dressing, and they're independent of each other and we can get that side dress on sooner. But look at putting it out when it needs to get out, not when in the fall when the co-op wants to put it out, okay? You got to get set up for these things. It's just, you can't, taking shortcuts and asking other people to do it is just not setting yourself up again for principle-based farming. It's not the right thing. So get yourself set up to do it right. Non-GMO seed, cost savings, half the price, right? Disease resistance, it's well documented, improved disease resistance. And then one person I wish we could have had on the podcast, unfortunately he passed away, is Dr. Bob Kremer. And he was a person that really identified that the whole soil microbiology changes when you plant GMO crops because GMOs exude different root exudates, and that creates a different soil microbiome. And it's a less diverse microbiome and a less helpful microbiome. So in other words, once you do that, then you got to have more plant protection and you got to have more nutrients applied to the soil in order to continue to maintain the type of yields that you'd like. So you get to pay for it coming and going, as they would say. You get to pay twice as much for the seed, then you got to pay probably twice as much to go ahead and baby and coddle it the whole way through to get the yields you expect. So again, I wish you could have heard Bob's research, but he knew that 25 years ago, and now it's just kind of getting picked up and getting popular. But really look away from there. And if you're worried about the cost of herbicides with non-GMO, I'm right at $49.53 on my corn, and I'm like $49.60 on my soybeans this year. That was all in for 3 passes on corn, 4 passes on beans, including cover crop burn downs. Okay? Not the application, but chemical costs, which were higher this year. Lovely. All right. Set up your seeder for liquid like I've done. Look at how to do that. That's a great opportunity to get your cover crop off to a great start, your small grain off to a great start, but also to apply the fertilizer that you need to the field. And the number one thing you should own on your farm that has probably the highest return on investment is a sprayer. And if you're hiring that out, you're guaranteed paying too much. Typically, I've found the chem cost is up to half the price buying it yourself, cash and carry, versus through your local co-op. And the operating costs of a sprayer yourself on a per acre basis is about 2/3 of what they would charge you. If you're getting charged $8 to $10 an acre to be sprayed, you can do it for about $3. And I would really encourage you to do that. And finally, the most important thing is you get to determine the rates and timing. So if you're wrong, it's your fault. See, maybe you guys are hiring a co-op so you can blame somebody else instead of yourself. And I know there's people out there that are doing it for that, be honest. But the key is that you're able to mix the products you want, and most importantly is use our burnout water. I've had we've set up a lot of people this year with dosatron injectors where guys will mix up a 5 or 10,000 gallon tank of pre-treated water with our burnout product, and then the active ingredient never touches anything, or the foliars never touch anything but burnout treated water. And because it's lower in pH, because it has a surfactant in it, because it has an enzyme package for uptake, and it has a buffer in it to keep it stable at that pH, and then also has a color indicator to where you know that it's been treated. All those things come together and just make outstanding weed control and outstanding nutrient uptake. So we've gotten a tremendous amount of feedback for them. I would encourage you, as you're setting up your fall decisions or winter decisions here, figure out a way to set up your own sprayer, use burnout water in it, and really take control. Be a self-applied farmer and really take control of every aspect of your crop management. So, like I said, a little bit different today. I walked you through some of the things that we're doing on our own farm that I'm really excited about, and show great potential, or working consistently. I'm really excited to be bringing you new crops in the genetics side, both in cover crops, soybeans, and stay tuned. There's probably going to be a non-GMO seed corn option here in the near future. And I think that those kind of things, when we've got products that are proven, that have synergy, that work great and enable you to take advantage of all of these soil health best management practices, combined with good planning, this is now the time to make those plans and set those purchases in action to have the best 2026 that you can and take more control of everything that you're doing. We're here to help you do that, help you with the decision-making, cost analysis, bouncing ideas. Please reach out. Be happy to help you with that. That's what we do for all of our Power to Grow clients. So thank you for your time today. I hope this has given you some practical things to think about. If you want to stop by, reach out, please do. I encourage you to do that. Thank you all, and I hope you're ready for a successful harvest here in 2025. Take care.